This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. Very pleased to be speaking with Jim Sheridan and David Merriman about recreation. How are you guys doing today?
Good, good, good.
Great, yeah. Staying out of the rain.
This film is very interesting to me, and what's most interesting in a lot of ways is that it's premiering at the Tribeca Festival in New York, when this is a very, Irish story. And I'm curious if you expect most audiences will be familiar with the true events, or if you think this will be an introduction for them.
It'll be an introduction, I think. Um, I think only in Ireland itself, and maybe a little in France, is the story so well known, you know?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, it was obviously the subject of a very popular podcast in the United States, and several documentaries. But yeah, I think Jim's right. We'll be kicking in the doors for people on this one.
What sparked the interest for both of you in really researching and extrapolating all of this?
Um, what started with me was just a journey from there was the fella who composed the music for uh, In the Name of the Father and in America asked me to go to a film festival he was starting in Skull in West Cork, and I was in Cannes, and I had to, I said to him, no, first of all, he just said, I'm doing it on such a date. And I said, well, do you know Cannes on that? He said, what's Cannes? And I said, well, Cannes another film festival. Uh, that might be different to the one you're starting in West Cork. So I had to, he said, but it's not that long. Anyway, I had to fly from Cannes to Dublin, Dublin to Cork, get a lift from him in summer traffic. And it took like so long. It was longer than going to LA. And I thought, why did that woman, Sophie Tuscan, who got murdered, why did she do this at Christmas with 2, 3 days, to be there? Like it seemed crazy. And it just sparked a little interest. And then I discovered she had my phone number in her diary. And that was a little connection that I don't know. It just made me think, was she going to call me, or does she call me, or is she calling me, or is her spirit calling me? And I just started becoming obsessed with it. That's kind of what happened for me.
What you, David?
So for me, I met Jim about 5 years ago, just when Murder at the Cottage was coming out in Sky, and we spent a great deal of time together. And Jim was obsessed with it, and I think the more we talked about it and started getting involved together, the more it was very clear to me that there was sort of an injustice had been done and somebody had been wrongly accused. And it's the kind of thing that really, winds me up. And I think we just started trumbling down the road and going through all the documents and finding more information, new evidence that pointed away from me and Bailey. And being kind of obsessive, and the two of us being obsessive, we lived in this world and kind of fed off it until we just felt like, well, there's something that we could do here that might kick up enough dust that something could happen. And eventually that did happen. Cold case a review was done 2 years ago, August it'll be, that it started, and we're hopeful that there's going to be some sort of conclusion from it. And we're hoping the film, in some small way, could maybe contribute to people coming up with a different answer other than the convenient one that's been there for so long.
Was this always the structure of the film, or was there a chance that it was going to be more of a straight documentary,
Yeah, it
with a
was
lot
going
of
to
hard
be
time?
it was going to be not a straight documentary. It was going to, I hate using words like this, but this is the kind of stuff you have to put down when you're making applications under the European co-production scheme. To use words, we were going to interrogate the facts, or interrogate fiction, or, you know, draw a comparison between fact and fiction, and, what's true and what's not true in film and the world. But as we were getting towards it, and it was going to be just with Vicky Krieps, and as we were getting towards it, the production went a bit out of control. The budget went too high, and we had to really cut back at the last minute and just decide, no, look, we're not building 9 sets. We're building one set. It's going to be a jury room, and we're going to do it like an homage to 12 Angry Men. So we just restructured with 3 weeks to go and collapsed all the information we had into an outline summary. And that allowed us to be able to release the actors in ways from worrying about lines and that. It became a lot of ad lib with some structured uh, story beats and sometimes searching for words. And so I kind of think it gave it a bit of an interior life that you wouldn't normally get with with a script. And we always had the structure to help us of it's a jury and we have to reach a verdict and we have to vote. So the voting became a structure in itself. And it wasn't easy to do given the time limitations. Um, but, Vicky was great and John Connors was great. And uh, most of the jury were great, and just all jumped in. And then we had COVID, and sometimes we couldn't have one jury member, two jury members, three jury members. So it was odd, but we got through it. Uh,
The
and
foreman was very good, Jim,
the foreman,
and
yes,
handsome as well.
yeah, played by, yeah. It was odd for me, I hadn't acted that much, but um, yeah, it was just interesting because I needed to be there to kind of uh, somehow control the flow of the story. Um, yeah. So, when did you see it?
I had the chance to watch the film a couple days ago.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes,
And did it
it's
make sense? Did it? Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. Again, it's something I didn't know about personally, but I think it's an interesting way to explore it because I feel like each of the jurors can bring up different things that have been brought up at one point or another, and
yeah.
it feels also like a sort of safe way of doing it because you're projecting many theories, but not necessarily giving weight to them. And so I assume from a legal perspective, that's also helpful because you're not
Hmm.
asserting that something necessarily happened, but instead, as you would hate to say, interrogating the possibilities.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it's a way of avoiding accusations of not being accurate, and but we were very accurate. But we were pointing out that other docs on the subject and other things on it had credible falsehoods in them. So we're like, well, if you can lie in a documentary, can you tell the truth in a fiction? That's the line. That's a good line. So if you
A
can
great
lie in
line.
a doc, can you tell the truth in a fiction? That's kind of our guiding principle. It's kind of like, you know, I don't want to get into it too much, but because I don't think it, but like in Shakespeare, he wrote one revenge, and most true crime now is revenge. But in Shakespeare's one revenge, we don't know what the actual revenge is in the real world because he had a son called Hamlet who did die when he was about 10 or 12, and he made sure that Hamlet was Shakespeare's Hamlet. And that to me seemed to be the function of the rewrite he did. So he used the fiction to establish a fact that may not be true. And that's very interesting because what it does is it kind of legitimizes the act of creation in a way that's different to the act of procreation, but so similar, that that's kind of like what it feels like when you're doing something correctly in a creative way, like Sam Beckett used to say about writing, no forcing, no forcing, it's fatal. And I think he meant a comparison to birth, like that you can't, and in a funny, fucked up way, the only way a man could at that time tell if the child was actually his was that he wrote it. It's like you didn't have DNA, you didn't have, you know, proof. So in our story, it goes to, in the end, a piece of DNA that's there that nobody will test, because to test it might be to test the credibility of their narrative. So they have functionality at the center. The French and the Irish have DNA that they've never released. And the question then becomes is why? What's going on?
A lot of very interesting questions, and I appreciate the way in which you explore this in this film. And I think it will be very interesting, especially because from this jury presentation, even though things in the U.S. are different, there's nothing all that much different from how that sort of deliberation works. And I think anyone who's ever
Uh-huh.
served in a jury will recognize elements of that, especially
Yeah,
the way in which people might be able to completely change their perspectives as they hear more information.
yeah, yeah. And Abe, where do you live?
I live in Los Angeles. Uh, I'm currently in New York visiting, but yes, I'm there. And actually, I wanted to note, when I was 15 years old, I went to go visit my grandparents in Florida with my younger siblings, and my grandmother took them to go see Along Came Polly, and I went by myself to see In America. And so,
Wow.
I think that was an early sign that I had different interests. And so, no shade to Along Came Polly, but in
Okay.
more sophisticated films. So it's an honor to be able to speak with you now, Jim.
Ah, great. God
It's
bless you. Thank you.
a great
That's
film.
that's probably one of my favorite films. It's just so personal. And did you like this one? Was it okay recreation?
Absolutely. No, it's great. And it's also good to see some familiar faces in there, which aren't distracting.
Yeah,
But I think it's a very interesting way to explore it. And I'm not somebody who spends a lot of time with true crime podcasts or that kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
nice thing about seeing it in film or television is it's usually my first time. So it's a new
yeah, yeah,
story to me, but I feel like I have more than enough information here. I don't know if I've made up my mind about what really happened, but I think that's sort of the point, and I so
yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cool. That's
Great.
great. Yeah.
So I wish you both plenty of luck with the film and with having some real life impact. And thank you so much for your time.
Okay,
Cheers,
great.
Abe. Lovely to chat with you. Thanks very much.